There is a mistake buried in the book of Job, made by three men who considered themselves wise, faithful, even compassionate. They sat with their suffering friend for 7 days in silence, and then they opened their mouths and they got everything wrong. Their conclusion was simple. Job was suffering, therefore Job must have sinned. Poverty and hardship in their minds were always the direct result of personal failure. And by the end of the book, God himself corrects them directly. Job 42:7, "I am angry with you, for you have not spoken the truth about me." So before we go any further into this subject, let's be honest about something most videos on this topic refuse to say. Being broke is not always a sign of sin. Sometimes the most faithful person in the room is also the most financially exhausted, and Scripture never once promises that righteousness guarantees comfort. Jesus himself praised a poor widow who gave her last 2 coins and never once suggested her poverty was a punishment. But here is what makes this subject so layered, so genuinely worth exploring carefully. While poverty itself is never automatically a sign of sin, Scripture does describe specific, repeated, identifiable patterns. Patterns of thought, patterns of behavior, patterns of belief that quietly keep certain people financially stuck for years, sometimes for an entire lifetime, regardless of how hard they work. And these patterns have almost nothing to do with income and almost everything to do with something Scripture keeps circling back to again and again across both testaments. Stay with this, because by the end, you are going to understand the actual difference between hardship that comes from outside circumstances and the kind of financial stagnation that comes from something happening quietly, internally, that most people never learn to recognize in their own lives. Let's start with the first pattern, because it is the one hiding underneath almost every other pattern on this list. A scarcity mindset rooted in fear rather than trust. Exodus chapter 16 tells the story of manna appearing fresh each morning in the wilderness. God's instruction was simple: gather only what today requires. Some Israelites, gripped by fear the supply might not return, tried to hoard extra overnight. Exodus 16:20 records the result. It bred worms and stank. Fear-based hoarding did not protect them, it corrupted the very provision meant to sustain them. This pattern shows up today in far subtler forms: financial decisions made entirely from anxiety rather than wisdom, refusing every risk, even reasonable ones, because scarcity has become the dominant lens through which every decision gets filtered. 2 Timothy 1:7 offers a direct contrast, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." A mind gripped by financial fear does not make sound decisions, it makes reactive ones, and reactive decisions, repeated over years, quietly compound into long-term stagnation. The second pattern moves from the mind into the hands, into what a person actually does with what little they currently have. Unfaithfulness with small amounts. The parable of the talents, Matthew chapter 25, describes 3 servants entrusted with different amounts of money. 2 multiply what they were given. 1, paralyzed by fear, buries his portion in the ground, protecting it from risk, but ensuring it produces nothing at all. Luke 16:10 states the underlying principle directly: whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. This pattern explains something many people never connect to their financial situation. It is not always about waiting for a bigger opportunity, a larger salary, a lucky break. Scripture consistently ties increase to faithfulness with whatever is currently in hand, however small. Mismanaging, neglecting, or simply ignoring small amounts, small savings, small opportunities, small resources quietly disqualifies a person from ever being entrusted with more, not as punishment, but as simple cause and effect. The third pattern concerns not what a person has, but the order in which it moves through their life, a reversed order of priorities.
Proverbs 3 verses 9 and 10 describe giving positioned first fruits, not leftovers. Malachi 3:10 extends the same principle into an invitation to test whether this order actually produces overflow. When generosity becomes an afterthought, something considered only after every other obligation and comfort has already claimed its share, the entire flow Scripture describes gets quietly reversed. This is not a magic formula guaranteeing wealth. It is a description of trust demonstrated through order rather than through amount. The fourth pattern is one of the most common and one of the most difficult for people to recognize in themselves: chasing shortcuts instead of embracing patience. Proverbs 13:11 states plainly, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." Proverbs 28:20 adds, "One eager to get rich will not be punished." This pattern traps people in a cycle, chasing one shortcut after another, one scheme, one impulsive decision after another, each one promising to finally break the cycle of struggle, and each one, because it bypasses the slow, faithful process Scripture actually describes, ultimately reinforcing the exact stagnation it promised to escape. The fifth pattern lives quietly in the comparison so many people practice without ever naming it: envy disguised as motivation. Proverbs 14:30 offers one of the most physically vivid warnings in all of Scripture. A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. James 3:16 adds, "Where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice." Envy convinces people their financial decisions are driven by ambition, when they are actually driven by the need to match or exceed what someone else appears to have. This pattern produces spending decisions rooted in comparison rather than genuine need, quietly eroding financial stability while creating the illusion of forward motion. The sixth pattern concerns not spending, but the posture of the heart underneath every financial decision: loving money instead of trusting God.
1 Timothy 6:10 clarifies this with precision so often lost in casual quotation. "The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, not money itself, the love of it." The moment money shifts from being a tool, entrusted temporarily, into something the heart actually organizes its entire identity and security around. This pattern often produces the appearance of financial ambition, while actually generating anxiety, restlessness, and decisions driven by fear of losing status rather than wisdom about actually building something lasting. The seventh pattern is perhaps the most overlooked because it does not look like a financial habit at all: refusing to forgive and carrying bitterness that quietly consumes energy and clarity. Hebrews 12:15 warns, "See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many." While this verse is not explicitly about money, the connection is undeniable to anyone who has lived it. Bitterness consumes mental and emotional energy that could otherwise be directed toward wise decision-making, toward diligent work, toward clear-headed planning. A person carrying long-term resentment toward a former employer, a family member, an ex-spouse, a past financial betrayal, often makes decisions filtered through that unresolved pain rather than through wisdom, sabotaging opportunities without ever realizing the bitterness itself is the hidden cost. The eighth pattern is the quiet refusal to plan, disguised as simply trusting God, failing to prepare for seasons that have not yet arrived. Proverbs 6 verses 6 through 8 point to the ant as a model, storing provisions in summer, gathering at harvest, with no commander forcing it to prepare. Some Christians mistake a lack of planning for spiritual trust, assuming genuine faith means avoiding practical preparation entirely. But Scripture consistently affirms both: trust in God's provision and diligent, wise preparation for seasons that have not yet arrived. Genuine faith was never meant to replace wisdom, it was meant to accompany it.
So here is where all 8 of these patterns converge, and here is the nuance that matters more than anything else in this entire video. None of these 8 patterns claim that every person currently struggling financially is somehow personally responsible for their own hardship. Job's friends made that exact mistake, and God corrected them directly for it. Sometimes hardship comes from injustice, from circumstances entirely outside a person's control, from seasons Scripture never promises will be free of difficulty, even for the most faithful among us. But Scripture also does not pretend these 8 internal patterns are irrelevant, or that examining your own heart honestly is somehow unloving toward yourself. There is a real difference between hardship imposed from the outside and stagnation that quietly perpetuates itself from the inside, through fear, through unfaithfulness with small amounts, through a reversed order of priorities, through envy, through the love of money, through unresolved bitterness, and through the refusal to prepare wisely for the future. The invitation buried inside all of this is not shame, it is clarity, because a pattern you cannot see is a pattern you cannot break, and every single one of these 8 patterns, according to Scripture, is genuinely reversible the moment it is honestly named and deliberately addressed. So here is the question worth sitting with long after this video ends. If you are honest with yourself, is your current financial season primarily shaped by circumstances genuinely outside your control? The kind Scripture never promises to eliminate, even for the faithful? Or is there a pattern here, quietly, patiently waiting to be recognized, examined, and finally, deliberately broken? Because Scripture never promises broke is forever. It promises a harvest at the proper time for those who do not give up, who examine their own hearts honestly, and who are willing, patiently, faithfully, to plant something different than what has been planted before.